Dear mama, something's wrong. It's cold for a summer night. I feel there's something far beyond what is in my sight. I don't know if we're safe here. I don't think we should stay here. Dear mama, something's wrong. It's cold for a summer night. There must be something in the water that's making us all this away. So tell your mothers and your daughters they better stay away. 'Cause out here there's something strange.
What unit were you in 2017, and how long had you been there?
I was at the third precinct, but I was working in the special operations. I'd been there about 2 years, I believe.
What happened that night? Why were you where you were, and what were you doing?
Well, so this particular night was March 15th in 2017. Prior to that, there was an officer, Collin Rose, who was shot and killed in November of 2016. We had very little evidence on who did it. We didn't know who did it, but we had some DNA to match it up, but we had no idea who to match it up to. And that's all we had. He was just overpowered by someone, shot in the head.
So you had a dead cop. All you knew is he got overpowered, he got shot in the head, and did you know who had done it?
Correct. No, we had no clue who done it. There was a picture that they recovered. I'm not really sure who recovered it, but it was 6 blocks from the shooting, about 5 minutes later, 5 minutes after the shooting. It was from a bus camera of somebody walking across the street in front of a bus. It could have been someone catching a bus. It could have just been someone crossing the street. I'm not really sure how they came up with this picture, but that's the only thing we had. And it was a black and white grainy picture. Only thing you could see in it was a black male. Couldn't tell the age, couldn't tell the height. And he had a trench coat on, and it was a Run DMC. You could kind of make out the Run DMC on it. That's it. You couldn't tell if he had a mustache, no mustache, 10 years old, 30 years old. You couldn't tell. But he just had a very, trench coat, Run DMC. That was the closest thing we had to a clue. And they passed that out to everybody, and we looked at that for, at least I did. I looked at that every single day, that day, all the way up to March 15th.
So how long had it been since the
November,
cop was killed?
March, about 5 months.
So 5 months of looking for some dude.
Yep, and there wasn't no one talking at all. And that particular area, since I worked narcotics in that area, I had a lot of informants, I guess you would, as some people call them, that would feed me information that you would not normally get through normal channels. But nobody had heard nothing. Nobody was talking.
Was that out of the ordinary?
Oh, very extremely. Out there, you throw any kind of reward out there, someone's talking. It's very common. And some people only need to do reward. They just mad at the other person. They'll snitch you out with quickness. But this one was very odd because no one was talking. I personally and my partner came to the conclusion, and apparently some other officers thought the same thing that we found out later, but nobody was sharing it, of course. But started to come to the conclusion that it might have been one of the homeless people that live out there, or the mental homeless people, because there is a tremendous amount of homeless, crazy people out here because they closed down all the mental hospitals. And there's some really big ones, big guys out here that are just crazy strong. And that's actually what I had pictured in my head. I figured if it was one of these guys, it'd be one of the really big guys that's going to take 10 of us to take him down to the ground. So me and my partner had started just slowly talking to the people that we see on the streets, kind of the ones that some you can't even talk to because they're so crazy. So you just kind of pick and choose who we talk to. And this particular night, we saw this Raymond, Durham was his name. And he came walking down the middle of the street carrying his laundry bag and basically everything he owned in it because he was homeless. And
had you run into him before? Were you guys familiar?
No, I had never seen the guy before. My partner was catching up the run sheet, and I was just staring forward, and I just happened to, for whatever reason, he just caught my vision. And I was just kind of watching him going to the gas station. Then he came out of the gas station. Then he started walking down the middle of the street in our direction. And then once I pulled up on a road, start driving, he didn't even get out of the way. He acted like he was a car or something. And he just walked right past us, never looked at us, never took a second take, just stared dead forward, which generally that alone means something. It's a kind of a nervous tick that people have. They think if I don't look at the police, they won't see me. They put the blinders on.
Right.
Right. And that's where your verbal judo comes in. If you can talk to them long enough that
Yeah.
not create a probable cause, but to find one.
That's verbal judo. I mean, those are tactics.
If you're trying to get, if you think they might have a weapon, you don't see one. You talk about just general things and then throw
Right.
off the ball. You got a gun in your pocket.
As long as you ain't got a gun in your pocket, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
you go,
that.
huh? And they say what? And they heard everything else you said, but that one's a big huh.
Yeah.
Hold on a second now.
Yeah. Body language is a big thing. You know what you can say and what you can't say. You're not allowed to ask somebody to incriminate themselves. But there are things that we could legally do, like the Constitution allows us to ask certain questions. But in Honolulu, they restrict those. They can make it tighter, just not looser. Right. The people have protections under the Constitution, but you can make it tighter. So our prosecutors made it tighter. I couldn't even get consent to searches on like a bag if I arrest a dude for whatever. I couldn't even literally have him sign a consent to search, read him his rights. He signs a consent. We search it, prosecutors throw it out because we were wearing a badge that constituted coercion. We coerced him because we were wearing a badge. He felt like he had to let us search it. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
In Hawaii, we always talked about, because they watch Cops, right? So you have cops in Hawaii that watch like the show Cops or Live PD or whatever. And I remember them saying to me all the time, because they didn't live in the mainland, like, yo, can you really do this? Can you search a dude's car on the mainland? Because in Hawaii, there is no searching cars. You forget about it. You got to get a warrant.
Yeah, that's my butt. No. When we search cars and we arrest somebody, it depends on why you're searching it. Now,
Sure.
we always, if we arrest them for something else and we search the car, because before we impound that car, we have to know there's no explosives or nothing else, and you come across. So there's all kinds of little ways you can do searches, but I couldn't imagine not searching a bag that they was carrying because I want to know.
Dude, put it this way:
purposes.
You arrest a dude, you take him to booking. We called it CRD, Central Receiving. You take him down to booking. They arrest the dude. They do a pre-incarceratory search, the PILA, and they take his bag. They're not allowed to search his bag. So they put it through a metal detector, which is like a 3D scanner, like a X-ray. It goes through the scanner. They see a gun. They pull out the gun. It gets thrown out. No case gets made because that was considered an unconstitutional search. Isn't that crazy?
Crazy.
Because you still search.
Never get a case out here.
Yeah, dude. Not going to that's what I mean. So in Hawaii, you're like a street lawyer. You got to know everything you got to do. The only way you're getting in something is if you have the basically constructive possession. You watched him, but I'm not going in it. Literally, I watch a dude take a gun. I'm chasing him. He throws it in his backpack and closes it. I can't go in that backpack. No matter what, I got to call for a detective, get a search warrant, the whole deal. Send that. The detective gets a search warrant, all that stuff. So it's crazy how things work on the mainland. But that's the Ninth Circuit for you. You talk to anybody who works out in the West Coast, it's the same as LA. That's how it works, bro. It's not the same. You're not having dogs sniffing cars. None of that. None of that's happened. I got my car searched here when I was 16 years old. I just got my license, maybe 17. And I had a dude run up on me with some German Shepherds, a cop run up on me, German Shepherds, and sniffed the car. And that always went through my head when I was a cop. I was like, yo, where's all this dogs searching cars on traffic stops? We can't do that junk in Hawaii. So it's interesting you get your perspective on that. We'll talk about, I definitely want to have you on another time, and I want to talk about the differences in police work between the different places. But so that this doesn't turn into 5 hours, let me just establish, a cop gets killed 5 months later, you guys are still looking for him. You got nothing. You got a little snippet of a video. You can see a shirt with like white letters on it. You're not sure what it says. He's wearing a trench coat. And you don't know he did it. This isn't footage of him shooting this cop. This is just a dude in the area that was caught on film. There's literally no real PC for him to be arrested for this crime. It's literally just he was in the area. He's a person of interest, and you can't really ID him. And you guys are on patrol.
Correct.
You see this dude. You caught him because we just got that sense. As soon as he walked out, boom, you start analyzing. Boom, 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 boom. You're calculating in your head the way he's walking, the way he's looking. He goes towards you, doesn't look at you guys, walks past the car while your partner is looking at the run sheet. What happens next?
Once he passed us, we kind of was done the debating if we wanted to stop him and check him out. Just walking down the middle of the street, and we decided, let's go ahead and check him out. And as I turned around on the scout car, he looked back at us, and he actually kind of reached down. That subconscious tapped his pocket. Let me see what they got a gun or something. They want to see if it's showing or it's bulging. And when he did that, then I go, first thing popped in my head is maybe he had a weapon. So I told my partner, watch that pocket.
Okay,
So
let me stop you
we
there. I
stopped.
think
Yeah.
people need to understand this. I carry a gun every day of my life, right? I have a CPL. I carry here. When I was in Hawaii, I was a cop. I carried there. When I was traveling, I could carry. It's a federal law. So I always had a gun. I'm not allowed to flash my weapon. You can't print your weapon. That causes legal problems because it's supposed to be concealed. So people shouldn't know that you have a gun. I'm real sensitive about that. When I walk into a public place with my gun, as soon as I go in the place, you check your weapon. That's what you do. And you check to see if you're printing or your shirt's tucked up behind the butt of the gun or whatever, because you don't want anybody to see it, because that's illegal if you're concealing. But also on another level, you don't want people to know that you have a gun or that you're a cop. So the fact that you talked about that but then skipped over it is very telling, because you and I, this is just a natural thing that we understand, but it's hard to explain to somebody who doesn't deal with guns every single day by bad guys and themselves, that you know what that looks like when someone touches something. It's a subconscious thing they do for situational awareness, because they're already wondering in their head, they're looking for options. What am I going to do? What did he see? Because sometimes they feel it and they realize, oh no, that was hanging out or whatever. Now they know the cop saw what he saw. And so his options are different. So now he's got to run. He's got all this algorithm in his head. It's like, that's how their brain works. They're like, okay, what do I got to say now? Because I can't just say that didn't happen. I either got to dip or I got to come up with some type of a reason. Or they're like, he didn't see nothing. I'm good.
Absolutely.
So what happened
So,
next?
okay. So once he tapped a weapon, or he tapped his pocket, I should say, I let my partner know just in case he didn't see it. Stepped out of the vehicle. I actually stepped out and I had my gun drawn, but I had it, down at low ready. And my partner went up and grabbed him by his arm, started talking to him, and brought him back to the car so we could talk to him. And once he brought him back to the car, I realized how old the guy was. He was like 65. He looked even older than that. He was pretty old and really small. He was only 5'4", maybe 5'5", maybe 100 pounds, 110 pounds. My partner, he's about 6 foot, 6'1", but he's just a massive muscle. At the time I was 40 something, and my partner was only 28. So between the two of us, we had this guy out flanked by weight, by running, everything. So my threat level was real low at that point. And then when I came around to the front of the car, I grabbed that pocket that he tapped, and I grabbed it. Being a trench coat, I could grab it. I could step back behind him with his hands on the front of the car.
So were you guys in uniform?
What we call a modified uniform. I still had my raid. It was kind of cold that day, so I actually had my raid mask on, which is basically just kind of like a ski mask. But I had like a SWAT vest on. It says police, that kind of thing.
So you guys pulled up. You guys busted a UE, pulled up to him, got out of the car, and told him to stop. You wanted to talk to him.
Correct.
Is this a detention at this point? Like, where are we at?
We're actually just kind of like an investigation, but I am checking for weapons because for safety and because of his actions. So
how much, for people that don't understand, how much, what were you at this point? Like, this dude has walked across the street. He was acting like he's not supposed to be there. He's acting like he's a car, didn't care. Somebody could have hit him.
Right. At the very least, I could have issued him a ticket, and that's what it's called, walking in street with sidewalk provided.
Okay. So it's where they can walk on the sidewalk, but they're in the street.
Correct.
Right. All right. So you pull up to him, you tell him, hold on, buddy. We just want to talk to you for a minute.
Yes. And then he just starts just jabbering. Everything he's saying doesn't really make sense. Hey, my sister lives over here. I was just going over there, and none of the directions made sense. He just kept talking. So I just kept asking his name, and he just kept answering his own question. Every time I asked her a question, he was talking about something else. His head was on a swivel. He was constantly looking on both sides of him, because my partner was on his left side, I was on his right side, but we were both behind him. So with his hands on the car, he'd look over his right shoulder to look at me, and then he'd look over his left shoulder to look at my partner.
Okay, so you guys told him to go to the car. That's standard procedure for you guys. You
Correct.
put his hands on the car because you were gonna do a pat down.
Correct.
Because this is basically like a Terry stop.
Yes.
Okay. And he's got a lot of clothes on.
Yeah, he had that big trench coat and he had like a sweatshirt and some other clothes like that.
Right.
But
Because homeless
my main
people.
focus, yeah,
And this is winter?
it's early March, so it's still pretty cold that day.
Okay. So it could be clothes. He could have a lot of clothes on. It's hard to do pat downs. It's hard to crunch.
Yeah, and those homeless people, everything they own will be in their pockets. I mean,
Right.
everything.
So he puts was he listening? Did he comply up to this point? He puts his hands on the hood?
I mean, kind of. He wasn't like
He wasn't
aggressively
refusing, but he wasn't
resisting.
listening.
But yeah, it was just like I put your hands in the car. He'd put it for a second, and then when I'd start to go to that pocket, he would turn with me with both his hands up. Like, well, listen, hey, wait a second. Constantly trying to distract me from He did not want me to go into that pocket, for sure.
So this is all building up in your head. This is all adding up. Like, this dude does not want me looking in this pocket.
Yeah, I was 100% convinced that there was a weapon in that pocket. So he kept talking, and I told him, "Put your hands on the car." He put his hands back on the car. Then maybe for a second, then he'd pull them back up, and he'd turn either towards me or he'd turn towards my partner. From the waist up.
And you guys are at this point. You guys are in like a tactical L. You're on one side, he's on the other side to avoid crossfire situation. Plus, there's a car on the other side of the suspect, and you guys are both maintaining like a visual. And are you guys both patting him down, or just one of you?
No, I'm actually patting him down. My partner, he actually gave my partner his wallet, and my partner was going through it looking for his ID. So my partner was looking down at his ID or trying to get his name so he could write it down. The conversation was mainly between me and
okay.
him.
And it's basically you saying, "Hey, dude, keep your hands on the hood." Yeah. He keeps taking them off to say, "Oh, my sister, I'm just going right over there. Can you guys just let me go? Listen, I'm kind of late. I'm, whatever." The millions of excuses that you hear from this all over and over and over again.
Absolutely. And I tried to continue to talk just to keep him off his game a little bit, but I couldn't get much more than "put your hands on the car," because every time I'd go to say something or do something, he would turn around and try to talk to me. And I think it was about 5 or 6 times I told him to put his hands on the car.
So how long from at this point have you been in his presence? How long is this been?
Maybe 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. I mean, from on the car.
Right. So he's been on the car for like 20 seconds, not listening to you, and you're just trying to pat this dude down.
Correct. But it was just because of the way he was looking on side to side, his fidgetiness. I didn't feel my threat level was kind of low just because I felt like I had the weapon in my hand, but everything he was doing was just had all my antennas up, was just going, this guy, something in his pocket he doesn't want me to have. And because of his build and the area he was in, there's a lot of narcotics, a lot of crackheads out there smoking dope. He kind of fit that vibe for me. He was really skinny, After the fifth or sixth time I told him to put his hands on his car, he tried to kind of lay flat on the hood of my car, and his hands started sliding up towards the front of his waistband. Now, I've seen that 100 times, thousands of times, to be honest, working narcotics. People you would never think a person would reach for a weapon or anything when the cops are right there with their hands on you.
Right, which everybody says. When you see a video on TV, everybody says that same thing. They're like, he's not gonna, no, you know what I mean? You're not gonna reach for the gun in front of the cops. Like, why would someone be so stupid?
That's what everyone thinks. Yep, they do. It's amazing. But I've seen more often than not, they're usually throwing out dope, throwing out a crack pipe because
they're hiding it. They're pushing it in somewhere.
Absolutely. And also, to kind of reinforce that thought, I thought I was pretty convinced I had the weapon, in that pocket.
So up until this point, you think you made up your mind he probably had a weapon when you saw him tap it, and then the way he's acting with trying to conceal and not letting you get to this pocket, you're like, dude, this dude's got a gun or some type of weapon, taser, whatever, in this pocket. What is this? His right pocket or the trench coat?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was right. Yeah.
So you're focusing on that, trying to keep his hands out of that pocket. He's not fighting you, but he's also not listening and always trying to distract you. And there's a difference between someone who's afraid and being coerced by the cops. That's its own demeanor. And someone who's trying to distract and someone who's trying to divert. And this guy, in this case, he's not afraid of you, but he's diverting your attention, just not letting you get to what you need.
Correct. Yep. And I think I did one of the things that can be a downfall for a lot of officers is I kind of assumed that even if I did have the weapon, that they only had one weapon. And that's kind of where it kind of gave me my false sense of allowing my threat level to be way low. So because if I didn't know for sure where the weapon was, I probably would have never let him move around as nearly as much as he was. But I was so certain that I had that weapon in that pocket and I had that pocket in my hand that what's he gonna do? He can't get to this pocket.
You've got the coat kind of like a curtain, like you've draped it. It's away from him, so he can't get in that pocket, but the coat's still on him.
Yeah, it's actually like up behind him at that point. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
okay.
Yep. And then the last time I told him, because he just refused to put his hands down on the car, and then that's when I actually looked over my partner and I said, "Hey, let's cuff this guy. He's getting too fidgety for me." And while I was saying that, I guess he heard me, which sometimes we use code words just for people that don't get spooked,
Right.
Again, I just ignored some of my normal stuff that we do because he's a little guy. Big, like I always say, this guy was half my size, twice my age. My partner is twice my size, half my age. This guy wasn't going to outrun us. He wasn't going to outfight us. And I got what I think is the weapon in my hand.
And so this is a common thing with police work. We've all had that moment where we see the fork in the road when we look back at it. You've done it 1,000 times, James.
Absolutely.
1,000 times you've made him do what he's supposed to do, and you checked every box. But the one time you don't, because he's tiny, he's old, he's a crackhead, you've got what you think is a gun that he cannot get to. And he's been over the hood of the car.
Yeah. And I just didn't feel the need to be mean to him, which that's why again, the citizens don't understand it, but officers shouldn't buckle to just pressure of outsiders saying, "Oh, you're mean," or "You shouldn't do this," because those people don't know what we should or should not be doing. And that can get an officer hurt when you don't follow the proper protocol and you don't do things by the number sometimes.
Right. And then on top of all this, you tell your partner in front of him.
Yeah, I said, cuff him.
Cuff him. He's too fidgety for me, which we all know. We all have our code words. I remember me and my partner used to say kilo. And kilo didn't mean anything. Like it's the phonetic way of saying K. But for us, kilo meant I've got a felony or I've got a high bail warrant. But it's my way of telling my partner this without this dude knowing, oh no, these guys know about that warrant or that I'm wanted for murder or that I'm whatever. Because that's the moment that they decide I'm killing this cop before I'm going to jail. So you try to keep that moment away from him as much as you can. And then you try to make that the smallest moment of that whole encounter, the moment between
they hear the cuffs come out of that.
Exactly. As soon as they hear those cuffs, and that's like a common thing cops talk about. He heard the cuffs, and you have a dude who's listening. He's bended over slightly forward at the waist. His arms are straight out behind him. His wrists are touching. You move forward for the cuff, and as soon as he hears those cuffs, that's what they train in academy when you're practicing and controlling arrest tactics. As soon as he hears that click clack, if you got like a button, if you got like your cuff pouch, they hear that button snap. They're turning around and shooting you, or they're running. So you try to make that the smallest moment, so you don't tell your partner, "Yo, I'm about to cuff this dude."
Right.
So normally you say something. We used to go like this.
Yeah, we did that too. If they weren't looking at us, yeah.
Right, we make the X. He doesn't think arrest. He's scrambling in his head, and you happen to tell your partner, "Put him in cuffs. He's too fidgety for me." What happened next?
At that point, I don't remember anything until I woke up on the ground. But after reviewing my video, what had happened was while I was saying, "Cuff him, he's getting too fidgety for me," the dash cam video, you could see he's actually laying forward on the car. He's actually reaching towards the front of his waistband, the front of his buckle. And literally just probably by the time I finished saying cuff him, he was already pulling the weapon. I still believe to this day he had another weapon. I still believe there was a gun in that jacket pocket. But he pulled a pistol out from the front of his waistband. It was a 6-shooter revolver. And he pulled it up. I mean, he just barely points it across his body at my partner, underneath his own arm, kind of like that. He double taps my partner, shoots him twice, right in the chest.
Perfect shot. Right in the heart.
But his vest stopped it. but still here
Sure,
hits
broke
with
a
an
rib.
impact really
Yeah.
hard. He didn't know it. He just like, oh crap, what's going on?
I'm
I
dead.
don't remember.
Is what he's thinking.
Yeah. I don't remember hearing a shot. I don't remember nothing. But he shot twice. Then he turned his body a little, just barely farther, a little more left, almost around his back, and he shot me twice.
So
And-
he shot 4 shots. 2 of them
Yeah.
hit your partner. 2 of them hit you.
Yep. And they said 2.1 seconds. I think they said it was.
2.1 seconds because we have this on video.
Yes.
And people say all the time, how did that dude make those shots? It just happens, folks. Cops get shot. If a bad guy's got a gun, you put a blindfold on his head, spin around 10 times, and throw him in a bucket of water. He's going to shoot those cops and he's going to connect it. I don't know what it is. Cops get shot and they die. And bad guys never. You have a trained cop who draws a bead and misses that guy or shoots him in his arm or whatever.
Yeah.
And this guy doesn't die. But some dude just picks up a gun, fires in that direction. It's going to hit a cop right between the vest, like right above that little neckline or in the side, under your arm, right through
Yep.
your heart. So
Back when
he
I'm-
hit 4 shots and he hit you guys. You could,
Yep. All 4.
Nobody can do that. You know how hard it is.
It was crazy. You thought he was some trained Navy SEAL or something. It was
Right.
unbelievable.
It's like a movie. It's like the movie Taken or something. 2 shots at you, 2 shots at your partner. Boom, 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 boom. That fast, you guys are both down.
Yes.
But the
So-
difference is your partner the partner got hit square in the chest,
Correct. Yep.
right in his vest. They stopped the
he did.
bullets.
Yeah. And then that's when it's what we call fight or flight kicks in. So he turned and put a little distance between him and the bad guy. About the other side of the street. Well, he didn't know exactly where I was at. So what happened when he turned and shot me? He shot me. One hit me right in the jaw, and the bullet actually rolled my jawline, my jawbone. Then it curved, which people don't realize how they're amazed about how bullets can curve and ricochet through the body, but they do quite a bit. Bullet hit, rolled my jawline, traveled down my neck, shattered my right shoulder blade, shattered my first 3 vertebrae. Is actually what they call C. I think it was C2, 3, and 4. Shattered 3 vertebrae, and then it exited somewhere on my back, left shoulder somewhere, and then the second bullet went in somewhere in my neck, and it lodged right at the base of my neck. And it knocked me out when I got shot, but I woke up when my head hit the ground.
So that's
That's
why
what
you
woke
don't
me up.
remember anything, because you got shot, you out cold, you hit the ground, woke up,
Correct.
and all you hear is shots.
Yes. When I wake up, I'm laying on the driver's side because I was driving. I was laying by the back driver's side wheel, and when I look up, Raymond Durham was standing. The bad guy. He's standing at the front corner of my car, which is directly in front of me, about 20, 30 feet, something like that. And when I'm looking at him, I'm kind of confused. I'm not really sure what's going on, because I don't know if you've ever been knocked out before, but you kind of, it takes a minute to get your marbles together. What's happening? I remember laying there going, why am I on the ground? Wasn't I just talking to this guy? I remember thinking that for a second. And then I realized he had a gun in his hand. He was having a gunfight with my partner. So once my partner ran, then my partner stopped, turned around, and they engaged in a firefight. So, and that's another reason why I believe there has to be another weapon, because he shot 4 right from the rip.
On
only
a
had 2
revolver.
Yeah, and only had 2 bullets left. So he swapped a gun out at some point, because I watched him shoot 3 times myself. So when I'm looking at him, he would shoot at my partner, then he would turn back and look at me to see if I was getting up.
How far away are you from him?
About 20, 30 feet, maybe.
So he's
Really
shooting
close.
and keeping an eye on you.
Yep, he's about the length of the car. And then he would shoot again. It seemed kind of a slow motion. I mean, it probably happened really fast, but it seemed kind of slow. So he would shoot, and he'd look back at me again to see if I was getting up. Then he would shoot, and he'd look back at me again. The third time he looked back at me, or no, third time he went back to shoot, he turned just right. And unbelievable, he had the exact same shirt on he did the night the shooting on March. And he fit that black and white picture that we had. He had a trench coat on. It was a Run DMC shirt.
And
And I
this
remember-
happened in your head. You're on the ground and you notice
Yeah.
this.
And I noticed this, yeah. And I got real excited for a second. Oh my God, this is the guy we were looking for. And I actually got excited. And that's when I went to grab my pistol. And that's when I realized I couldn't grab my pistol.
Why couldn't you grab your
Uh,
pistol?
I was 100% paralyzed. And the more I tried to grab it, the more I just, I don't know, the more I realized I was paralyzed. Actually, I didn't realize I was paralyzed. Your brain, at least my brain at the time, didn't really tell me I was paralyzed. My brain said, you're dying. And you're like right on the edge. I was right on the edge of death. That's what my brain was telling me. And actually, theory, I
Wow.
was right on the edge. You always see the way when I tell people, the way I explain it is, you see the movies where the guy's talking to his partner or whatever, and he's looking up at him and he's like, tell my wife and kids I love them. And then they close their eyes and that's it. That's where I was at least in my mind, the whole time. I might have been slightly above that, but not much. So I remember looking at him, and once I realized I wasn't going to get my weapon, I remember thinking, well, I've had a good run. I've had 23 years of doing this. I had a good job. Wow. Hold on a second. And I remember I was kind of calm. It was kind of weird. I was really calm. And I said, well, I guess this is it for me. And I remember praying just to go to the hospital just long enough to see my kids and my wife. I was gonna tell you that this is the only time I ever get choked up when I'm telling a story. Just one spot right here.
I get
But
it.
I was real calm at first. Then he finally, I guess he shoots my partner in the leg this time. My partner goes down. The shooting stops. And then he turns around and refocuses on me. Because I kind of accepted this is it for me. I'm done. Because I mean, I really thought I was going to die before it even got to me. But once the shooting stopped, and he started walking towards me, then everything changed for me. Then it was no longer just calm. Then fear came into me, anger. I mean, just every emotion possible. I remember I could hear some of the guys because my entire career, I mean, from a rookie to my 23rd year, I was going 100 miles an hour all the time. I just refused to sit down and write tickets. And people used to tell me, hey, you need to slow down, man. You ain't making no difference on here. You're just a number. You know, you're nothing. They don't care about you. And I remember just saying, you're just lazy. You're a slug. And, you know, I remember thinking all that stuff. But I could hear that voice in my head when I was laying there thinking, they were right. What difference have I made? These still dope houses. They're still up and running. This city hasn't changed one bit. For what? Now my kid's not gonna have a dad. Wife ain't gonna have a husband. And I mean, I was just angry. I mean, just all kinds of things. And then I remember praying, just please don't let him shoot me in the back of the head and blow my face off because I wanted my kids to have a funeral.
Yeah. That's a crazy thing to
So
think.
then he walked right up to me and he actually bent down to look me eye to eye to see if I was alive or dead. Because of my mask, he couldn't quite see my face and the angle I was laying. One thing I could do was just play dead. I mean, I couldn't do nothing else. So I held my breath and I closed my eyes and I kept one eye open just enough where I could just see him. He looked down. I mean, he was inches from my face. Then he stood back up and then he kind of was straddling my body, you know, put on each side of my body. Cause I remember opening my eyes and his boot was right there in my face. He put the pistol right down to my head. And I was like, this is it. I just closed my eyes. Click. He was empty.
The hammer fell.
Yeah. He pulled the
And it
trigger and
clicked.
it was empty. Gun was absolutely empty. And I remember thinking, oh my, you gotta be kidding me.
That is
But
unreal, James.
I expected him to run or something, just take off. But no. He stood over top of me, calm. And I could hear, I would swear to this day, I could hear him breathe. I could hear his heartbeat. You know, probably my heartbeat, but I mean, I could hear everything just individually. I could hear him rustling around his pocket. So after he pulled the trigger and it didn't go off, he calmly opened up the revolver, pushed all 6 of the brass out, went back in his pocket, which contained probably everything he owned, and he pulled out a bullet, loaded it in the gun. He'd go back in his pocket and rustle around, about 15, 20 seconds each time, pull out another bullet, load it in the gun. That all 6 times. Once all 6, I remember counting all 6, and once I heard the 6th bullet go into it, heard him slam the revolver shut. And this time, this is it. This time, I know for a fact, this is it.
So you're conscious, you're playing dead, you're laying in front of him. You hear the clunk of all 6 of those rounds into that revolver. You hear him close the revolver. And now
It's just like on the movies when you like the bad guy or the good guy comes on the last scene and you can hear him breathing. He's putting that last shell, and everything else is blocked out, and you just hear. Then you hear you hear the clink of everything. That's exactly the way it was. I heard everything he was doing. I heard that revolver slam shut, and you could never imagine the feeling of being what's the word I'm looking for? When you can't protect yourself, you can't do nothing. You're just at somebody else's mercy. Defenseless. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. That's actually seems to be a side effect of all this. I forget words from time to time. Kind of weird. But anyway, so I lay there, hear the revolver shut. I could hear him extend his arm even, like the clothing. I'm not sure what it was, but I just knew he extended his arm over, down to me. This time I actually took a breath and I closed my eyes. And I don't know if it's going to hurt, how quick it was going to be. I wasn't really sure. I hear 3 shots. Boom, boom, boom. And then I'm just laying there. Nothing felt like it changed. I didn't know. I was kind of afraid at first to open my eyes. I'm like, I didn't know if I could open my eyes and be in hell, heaven, what? I didn't know. I that's honest guy. I joke about it now. I opened up just because I was laying on my right side. I remember opening up just my left eye and looking to see if there was a white light coming from heaven, and there wasn't. I was scared to open up my right eye, see red light. But when I opened up my second eye, I opened up both my eyes. I saw my partner standing up. 3 shots I heard was my partner shooting. So the moment he slammed the revolver shot and pointed out to me, my partner had stood back up and shot him 3 times. And the guy ran.
Unreal. Did he hit him with those shots?
Yeah, he actually shot him once in the arm, and I think one or 2 in the side. I can't remember. We had some ammo that was just, we'd complained about it for years. It was like the most minimal expansion rounds. And we told them that big Carhartt coats and a lot of thick winter coats caused the bullets to expand and they wouldn't penetrate. And that's kind of what happened to him. They didn't really penetrate him very well. I think the one went through his arm, but the ones on the side never penetrated him. They just looked big, giant welts. So then my partner, after taking 2 to the chest and getting his leg shot shattered, he hopped over to me, stood back up, returned fire, saved my life, hopped over to me, and he collapsed right on top of me. No, this is an officer with 3 years on the job at the time. Which was just crazy to have somebody that well trained with that little bit of time. Dropped, fell on top of me, and he never broke view of looking to see where the bad guy went, where he ran. And he just scanned the horizon the whole time.
So he's laying on top of you, and he's still assessing and looking for the threat.
Yes. And what he didn't know, and I couldn't relay anything to him because I was paralyzed, I couldn't speak. When he took 2 bullets to the chest, it actually hit his microphone cord that curled, that goes from his radio.
The lapel mic.
Microphone. Yes. And so he's trying to key it up to call for backup, but he doesn't realize it's not going through because
it doesn't tell
moment.
him.
Yeah.
He's trying to cover down, protect you. He's laying on top of you, covering down because he's got a vest on, which is like what I'm assuming is the idea here is you're hurt. He's got his vest on. He's laying on top of you and he's covering down. What he doesn't know is the lapel mic has been shot. The bullet hit the lapel mic, severed it. He's keying his mic. Dispatch isn't getting what he's saying. They're not getting any transmissions, but he thinks he's called for help.
Yes. And we're just laying there. And time at that point to me it's very hard for me to the concept of time. But I think overall it was about 15 minutes. And I believe a car drove by us at one time, drove around our police car. And I remember him telling them to call 911, which they never did. I remember him saying, call 911, call 911. I had some weird thoughts going through my head when I was laying there. It's kind of odd. But I remember even chuckling to myself going, we are 911, dummy. I don't know why it stuck in my head, but I remember thinking that. And then I don't know at what point he realized he wasn't going through because I don't know when he realized it, but he actually stood back up, hopped over to the car because he only had one leg, hopped back over to the car, grabbed the car microphone, radio, called for backup. Very calm.
Copy. 2022. Radio! Barry! 332! Kelvin! Ash! Officer down! 332! Hurry up, we need more equipment! 1 black male! Out. Take me around. Teach me around. Address again, please. Which units is en route? Lane 9. Lane 9. Show us route. Location.
Tillman and Ash. Tillman and Ash.
Can you please order EMS to this location? 10-3 heading that way. Location.
Tillman and Ash. Tillman and Ash. 2 down. 2 officers down.
This way.
Working on an officer. 3 unit on District 6.
Okay. And that's going to be 1 block west of the Jeffries.
Can somebody give me a description of a perp or anything out there?
Got a black male tan jacket right now.
And then he comes back over to me, and he kind of he lays on me, or he's next to me watching. And then finally, it was Wayne State Police, which was a college within our city. They showed up first, and they came out, and then he rolled off, or they drug him off or something. Not really sure how he got away from me.
So
then,
the Wayne State cops rolled up. Isn't that where the officer was from that died?
Yes, he was. Yes, it was.
So the department, man, that's awesome. So the department who lost that officer rolled up to you guys first.
Yeah.
Man. This is the craziest story, James. And he probably looked down and saw it severed.
Yeah, he could have.
And it was like, oh, I'm not getting anything, or he's not hearing anything on the radio. So whatever happened, he realizes, he jumps in the car. You said he's only got 1 leg. He was hit?
Yeah, when he hit it, that after he took to the chest, and then he had that gunfight, he got shot in the leg. It shattered his whole shin, or whatever you want to call it, the knee down. That's why that's why the bad guy stopped and then refocused on me, because he figured he was down.
Oh, so he had shot him. He went down.
Yes.
That's when he focused on you and was going to take you out. But by the time he went to pull the trigger, your partner had stood up and then drew down and then shot him 3 times.
Correct.
And then he runs away. That car drives by, doesn't call 911 like you asked him to, and Wayne State pulls up first.
Yes.
Okay. How many officers showed up?
I believe there was at least 2 cars there, and I wasn't sure because I couldn't turn my head. I couldn't look. I remember 2 guys came over to me, and they grabbed me by my arms and my legs, to pick me up. And that's the first time I screamed. I mean, even though I was paralyzed, even when I was paralyzed, I couldn't even speak. I was just completely without function. But the pain was so great, I just screamed really loud. And they dropped me back on the ground, and they were trying to ask me what was wrong, but I couldn't speak. And I thought I was trying to blink Morse code to them or something. The particular vest I had, it was designed with handles on it, so you could pick up somebody up by the handle and drag them. And I remember, trying to look side to side or whatever thought I was doing, trying to get them to look at the handles, but they weren't picking up. They weren't comprehending. And I just laid there, and I just remember thinking, can this get any worse? I mean, I'm shot, and I got officers just standing around looking at me, and just, you didn't think it could ever get any worse, but just one thing after another. And then finally a sergeant showed up and asked what's going on. And they said, he's shot. Well, why is he just laying there? Why don't you have him? He screamed when we pick him up. Well, you can't leave him there. And then they grabbed him by my handles. He told them to grab him by the handles. He picked me up, threw me in the scout car, and I was head first into the scout car. My head's down in the floorboard, so I'm basically upside down. And I have a radio. My radio was still in my ear, my left ear. It was just like an inner earpiece. And while we're driving to the hospital, I can hear them calling out the directions and that kind of thing. Then I could feel, so I had the radio in my left ear, and in my right ear, I can feel it, my blood, fill my ear up with blood, hot blood. And that's when I figured, this is it. I'm not going to make it. And I was just starting to doze. I just heard every street location anytime we'd cross the main street, the guy who was driving, the officer that was driving would say, we're crossing this street, because the officers were way ahead of us, stopping traffic, so we could go straight to the hospital.
They leapfrog. They clear all the intersections for you. And
just as we pull up to, I mean, again, I'm not exaggerating or anything, just like a movie. So I'm kind of looking upside down with my head towards the other door, and we pull up to the ambulance. Somebody opens up the car door, which is now above my head, and I'm kind of looking backwards or upside down, however you want to say it. I'm on my back, kind of, and the bright lights from the ambulance or from the hospital are just super bright. And because I'm right on the verge of just passing out or dying, whatever it is, my vision's starting to go. I remember somebody leaning over top of me, which then kind of blocked the light that was in front of me. And that was it. I was out. I didn't know if I died. I don't know. I mean,
So that's your last memory.
yeah.
And then
And there was that little area, that little time I was talking between the time he turned and refocused on me and walked to me. It was a lot more to that. I only could get certain parts of it because that's the only time I ever get choked up telling the story. But
man,
yeah, that seemed like an eternity, that little time frame.
what happens next in your memory? What happens next?
My next thought or my next memory was, which was actually a couple hours later. Yeah, I guess they had put me through X-rays and everything to see where the bullets were at. They was wheeling me down the hospital, and again, just like on TV, I'm on my back looking up, and you see the white lights passing you down the hallway, and just for a few moments, I had this pure clarity. I remember just sitting up, going, check the gas station. I named the street that we were at, the gas station we were at, checked the camera, and I gave a description of him. Black male, brown jacket, and then I was trying to give more description, and my captain was somewhere behind me walking with us, and he just said, hey, relax, calm down. He goes, you train your partner well. He has his ID. We know who we're looking for. And then right then and there, I was out again. I remember thinking, when I came to, I remember thinking, I still thought I was dying, which still kind of was, but I was convinced I wasn't making it. I remember thinking, get this guy before I die, though. So I was just trying to get as much information as I could. And once he said that, then I don't know if I gave up or what, but then I blacked out again. Then I woke up a couple hours again later in a room of some sort, and my wife was standing in front of me.
Man.
And that's when the pain kicked in. And it was unbearable pain. It did so much nerve damage with that bullet bouncing around my back. I mean, if you breathe heavy in my room, I felt like I was gonna die. Just on fire. It just everything, head to toe. They actually, for 5 days, which I thought was one long night, I was actually in that room, just in pain, the greatest pain you could ever imagine, multiply it by 100. For 5 days, I didn't sleep. I just groaned, I guess, for 5 days. Just pain was just unbearable.
Okay, so you wake up and your wife's standing by your bedside.
Yeah.
How long had time passed?
I never know. I don't know. That's one question I never asked exactly how long it was when I first woke up. It's kind of weird. I never asked that. The first night, it had to be the first night. Well, it was the first night. Probably within the first 2 or 3 hours. It would take my wife about at least an hour to get up, get the kids, and get in the car, and then get all the way out there. So it had been at least a couple hours. I don't know. So
okay, and then for 5 days, you were in the hospital bed?
yeah, the ICU, whatever the touch and go area is, they don't know.
What did they say? What was going on? Why were you in ICU for 5 days? What had happened?
I guess they want me to get my pain under control before they had surgery, because they had me at the max of the pain medication, and it wasn't touching nothing.
You wake up after 5 days, and what happens?
Once I woke up, just my recovery started. I guess at that point, people. I remember it was just a lot. It was just so much pain. I was so drugged for a while. They're just. I don't remember real clear a whole lot of stuff. I can just remember they moved me out of the ICU up to a regular room, and then people was coming up visiting me, and then
like officers and family.
Yeah, that's what I remember. The first 5 days, it was just one officer and another just walking back and forth in front of me. I couldn't move. I remember the chief came in, the mayor came in, and but they never. I found out later they never expected me to make it through the night, all 5 nights. They never expected me to live. And I can remember, it's kind of weird. I assume it's when they was doing surgery. They did plastic surgery on my face. The one picture I don't have is apparently you could see my whole jawbone, literally from my chin all the way up to the top of my jawbone. No one wanted to be the guy that taking a picture of it, I guess, and no one did. But when the plastic surgeons or the surgeons was working on it, I must have been half in and half out, because I can remember 2 guys real close to my ear talking. So I'm assuming they were like working on my face. And wow, you think it's in there? I'm not really sure. It might be. You know, they didn't know which one was the exit wound versus the entry wound. They wasn't sure exactly where the bullet was exactly. I remember hearing all that. It was really close to my head. And then I remember hearing him say, "It must have finished." I remember them saying, "Well, let's get him cleaned up before his wife gets here. Get that blood off of him." I remember hearing that. It's very weird, but I'm pretty sure that was during the surgery.
Wow, dude.
And then from there, it was a long recovery. 30 days in the hospital.
How long had it been since you'd seen, like, until you got to see your partner or knew what was going on? Like,
Well, in that 5 days, first 5 days, you know, even though I was barely in and out, I knew I got shot. And then I remember my wife telling me Ben's my partner. I remember just saying he's okay. That's all I remember saying about him. I didn't see him until a couple days after I was been in the regular hospital bed. And until they released him, he couldn't come see me either. So basically, when he was already had his surgery, his leg was fixed and pins and everything. Then they finally let him. I think they wheelchaired him over to me. You know, and that was like the first time I saw him. It had probably been a week or so. It was just me staring up at the ceiling. There was very little I could do.
And then when did you find out who your suspect was?
Oh, wow. I've thought about this in a long time until you just asked that question. So it was, I'm not sure. So it was that night. So when I woke up, when I was going down the hallway, and that's all I could think about was just get this guy before I died, because, you know, I was dying. I knew I was going to die. I just knew it. It wasn't I was giving up. I just knew I was dying. The pain, and it was just so great. And, you know, I couldn't move, and my brain's just saying, this is what it's like just before you die. And granted, what I can explain to you now might have been days or, you know, tons of hours in my brain. It was just like that, quick. But when the sergeant, it was either my sergeant or my captain, came in my room, and the fiance of the officer that was killed, she was in my room also.
That's what I remember you saying. So you woke up once?
Yeah, when I came to, she was standing there, my wife was standing there, you know, they was all there. And then right then, one supervisor comes in and says, "We caught him." And for the first time, because I didn't give up, but I just refused to die at the time before they caught this guy. I'm like, "You're gonna catch this clown before I die. I'm gonna do everything I can to help till then." As soon as he said, "We caught him," it's the first time I've ever cried in my life in front of anybody. First time I cried in front of my wife. Tears just flowed.
And it was that moment that you knew
I
that
was
you
ready.
caught that guy.
No, it was that moment that I was ready to die. I was ready to go. Now I can rest.
Because you were holding out for that. You wanted to catch him before you were convinced you were going to die. You just wanted to catch this dude, and then they tell you, "We got him," and that was your okay.
Yeah. Because I remember the captain going, "Hey, why are you crying? Oh, that's good news. It's good news, you know."
He didn't know that you had been just waiting for that.
Yeah,
But that was going to be your end of watch.
absolutely. This is the first time I've talked about that.
That's insane, man.
That's something I've always skipped over. I kind of forgot about it, to be honest.
You were in the ICU for how long?
5 days until they did the surgery, and then I was out, you know, to my own room, and then from then it was still a long. I mean, I couldn't move. I couldn't. Pain was still very, very great, and you know, I was constantly pushing that button, getting medication. It was the longest month I've ever felt in my life. And my wife never left my side.
It's a good woman.
She never went home the whole time from the night she got up there.
Your partner gets out of the hospital.
Yeah.
You were in the hospital how long in total?
28 days.
28 days later, you get to go home.
Yeah.
What condition are you in?
I got a neck brace on because I had I had 3 shattered vertebrae. So, and I had actually lost 15 pounds in those 28 days, which was healthy balance. I mean, I actually looked like a crackhead. My neck was just so skinny and just a rough beard that wasn't quite a beard, but it was just, and I was looking pretty ratty. But the one thing I remember, and kind of odd, but it was one of the greatest moments of all of it was, I was wondering why I wanted to go home. It was something to go. I wanted to go now. You know, they kept dragging the feet. I couldn't figure out why, and I was kind of mad. Well, what happened was, I guess they wanted to get a bunch of people at the hospital there. I guess I left, but then they had a radio. One of our prep radios was sitting at the main desk at the hospital. So when I came outside, and they had it cranked up, and I think all the officers had their radios turned up, and dispatch gets on the air. And she said, today's date, so and so. Hold on. She said, she said, today's date, then she said Officer Collin Rose, said his badge number, said my partner's badge number, and then said, what, it's hard. She said my badge number, and then it's kind of like she called my code name. 90% of the police department just know me by my code name. They probably couldn't even say my real name. And then she said my code name. Then she goes, "We got him." It's a little better than that, but wow. But it was a pretty cool moment. It was on YouTube there, and I had it saved it somewhere. I can't find it now, but it was pretty cool. It was just somebody recording it. Just all it was the prep radio sitting there. It's kind of cool.
So you got all the officers standing by, make kind of like a hallway for you. They got their radios up, and you hear dispatch say, "Collin Rose, who's the officer who died?"
Yeah. Yep.
Said Officer Collin Rose, badge number such and such, and then your partner, and then your name, and says, "We got him."
Yep.
Wow, dude, what a powerful moment. Now you go home. And how long were you out in rehab without being able to even think about going back to work?
Oh, it was a year before I almost could get up the couch. My parents that live across the street from me are 75, 78, and they were taking care of me. I couldn't do nothing. I just sat on the couch, watched TV with my neck brace, zero strength. I mean, my mom had to help me stand up. I mean, it's stuff like because of the nerve damage, I had no feeling in my arms for a long time, like from my elbows down. I'd be trying to eat, and like, it's kind of funny now, make fun of it now, but like I'd be watching TV, eating cereal, and then a couple of times I went to put the spoon up to my mouth, and I didn't have the spoon in my hand. And I didn't even know.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't feel my fingers, and little stuff like that. We kind of joke about now, but
so the big question is, how long until you went back to being a policeman?
It was about going on my second year off, because so after about a year, I was able to, now I was going to rehab and that kind of thing. But it still took another year to even get my strength up. I mean, it was crazy. It's just, so about a year and a half into it, I was bench pressing like 30 pounds. Just absurd. I used to be able to do 200. To go from 225 pounds. I mean, I would battle between my ego and humiliation, and then looking over and seeing old people lifting more weights than me. And then it was a lot. I mean, it's just, it's funny thing is maybe just karma coming around getting me, but I used to hear people talk about PTSD and that kind of thing. And I used to always think that's for people that are weak, people that are weak minded. You got halfway. If you can talk to yourself and keep your morale up, that kind of thing, that shouldn't affect you. PTSD is only for like prisoners of war or something like that. But after about the first year, that's when they was actually taking me off the narcotics, and that's when it started hitting me. I think the narcotics kept my head just in a fuzz where I never felt any kind of emotional stuff at all that first year and a half. I was just kind of like,
Wow.
I had a cool story to tell people, and that kind of thing. And then once I got off the medication, it's like I started thinking more depth into what had happened, and that's when emotional things started kind of coming up, and depression kind of started setting in a little bit, and then different things. I wanted to go back. My ego wanted me to go back, but then also what I learned within that first year or so I was at home, how much home I had missed in the 20 years prior to that. My kids growing up, I had spent so much time at work. I mean, just ridiculous amounts. And I never realized it. I did a pretty good job of separating my personal life from my job. Never brought my job home. You hear a lot of bad things about police officers and divorce rates and that kind of thing. I mean, I had about a 45-minute drive home, and I'd always decompress in that 45 minutes. And I just never, ever walked that door, talked about work. I just did. It's just two separate things. But I wasn't home very often. And I just didn't realize that the first summer I got shot in March. It was that summer. My oldest daughter was graduating. I was there for her graduation. And that's when I realized how much I missed. I didn't take her for Detroit, like Halloween was restricted. Always had to work 2 days prior to Halloween, Devil's Night, because all the damage and stuff they'd commit. Now I got a daughter that's 18 and I never took trick-or-treating ever.
Wow.
Don't seem like much when you listen to it, but it's quite a bit. And there's other things too, like that. Holidays. The police have to be to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand a lot of jobs require that kind of thing, but I don't know. Just that didn't wrapped up everything else that you got to deal with sometimes. It's police officers sacrifice a lot. It didn't seem like I'm not trying to say that to get kudos, because it didn't seem like a sacrifice at the time, just because I enjoyed my job. But
because the career draws you in.
Yeah.
And it's hard to maintain an awesome, productive, exciting work life and an awesome, productive, exciting home life.
And on the job that I was in, I don't know if it's throughout the whole department or just within that bureau of working narcotics, but and not to like talk bad about one particular person, but it was always, what have you done for me lately? You're only good as your last bus, so you're always trying to make another one, trying to make a better one. As soon as you stop producing, you're back on patrol with somebody else, So it was a constant, just having to prove yourself over and over and over and over.
Yeah, you're right. So you're no longer a police officer.
No, I'm not. I retired, but I fought with that one for a while. They wanted me to come back. They promised me all these positions that, watching cameras. They have something called a green light camera in Detroit, where they have these cameras at every single gas station. They're at the casinos. They're everywhere, and it's kind of like the casino security. And you can sit in one room and just monitor all kinds of cameras. But they wanted me to do that. They tried to talk me up a little bit. Oh, you got the eye. You know what to look for. But the day I sit down and watch a TV camera and then call the police in to go grab somebody, I'd lose my mind.
Yeah.
Have some rookie go in there and miss what I'm trying to tell him to get. I just.
It'd be torture.
Oh yeah, it would. So it sounded great to a lot of guys. Oh man, that's a great job. Now, you might be, but not my brain to the day. It just does not slow down. That's why I talk fast. I'm constantly moving. So it was a battle. And for my ego, the turning point though that really made it where I could accept my retirement was because even when I did retire, my mind, was it the right thing to do? Was it, a guy that I used to work with in Detroit as partners, he is now a sheriff somewhere else. And even though I didn't apply for his department, he actually called me a little over a year ago and asked me, they had an opening. He called me to see if I'd fill that position. He goes, I want to know if you want to work for me before I put out the help wanted sign. And that alone, that was just enough to make me realize, enough people still thought well enough of me that I just didn't quit.
Yeah.
That I was okay with it. And I was actually tempted to take the job, take the position, but right then that's when the shooting came out where the officer shot the guy that was reaching for a knife inside the car. I believe they shot him. And then it was after the other one. And everybody got all up in arms again. And I didn't think they would. I thought it'd be a little more calm because people was more used to it. Got used to that kind of story. And they didn't. And because everybody else got mad, it made me very angry. And that's what I realized, that if I can get that angry over something that has nothing to do with me and that far away, that it probably wouldn't be the best to have that kind of mentality on the job now. Because I can honestly say in those 22 years, I never got mad. I mean, that was just something I never had a problem with. Never took anything personal. I mean, if we fight with a bad guy, I didn't take it personal. It's his job to try to escape, my job to try to arrest him. But now I couldn't control that particular part of my emotions or my mind or my thoughts or whatever. So it's better to go out on top with what I used to be rather than what I turned into.
If you could have done things differently that night, would you have?
Well,
and what would it have been?
And that particular thing, it's hard to say because I battle with the thing with, people always, because when you see the video with officers that look at it, it just looks sloppy. Like I just didn't do my job. They either think I didn't see what I should have saw. And that's majority of people think that. That was something else. After this, I never went back to talk. Nobody has ever really, because this is an ongoing case. I'm talking to you about it now because it's been 4 or 5 years now. Or the guy's in a mental ward. He's too crazy to stand trial now, that kind of thing. And he's never going to stand trial, so I really don't care anymore. But no one knows the story. They just know I got shot, my partner got shot, my partner went back to work, I did. And that's it. And they did, I got caught slipping, kind of more or less. They don't realize all the stuff. They don't know I was laying there paralyzed. They didn't know none of that. That they put the gun to my head and pulled the trigger and it didn't go off. They just, and then they see the video. They showed the video at a training class, and then they gave it a horrible setup to the video. Here's a quick video of two officers trying to get a quick arrest. This is what you don't want to do. And they just show it, So, and then people look at that. Oh, that's sounds. Oh, yeah, that is bad, And it didn't happen quite like that. I battled. Should I say I didn't see it, or I saw it and I ignored it? That's the only thing that really bothers to this day bothers me. But would I change it? I mean, yeah, I would like to say I didn't ignore those things. I do want to think I didn't ignore those things because of what what the community was saying or whatever it was screaming about at the time. That particular day, because I've never taken a job personal, I treat everybody on an individual basis. Nice to me, I'm nice to you. I was tired that day, worked double. He was a little old man. Besides not listening to me and being fidgety, I didn't feel threatened by him because I felt like I had the weapon. So I was kind of being nicer, too relaxed probably, obviously. That'd have been a younger guy. He took his hand off the car one time, he'd have been in cuffs. Because he was an older guy, he was small. I was just gave him one too many opportunities, and that's what happens. And for the average citizen out there that says, why do cops do the things they do? This is why. You give somebody too many opportunities. Question number one is, how many is too many? It only takes one time. But what I've learned from it, not as a police officer, but as a father, I would never change that.
Has it been hard for you to transition to civilian life?
No, it was been very tough. It's literally until these past maybe 6 or 7 months, I finally learned to accept it. that I'm just an average person. And now, I mean, I'm mopping floors at a garage, I mean, so it can be very humbling, or however you want to look at it. But that was the biggest battle I fought, which is that my mind and my ego was just constantly just fighting.
Are there things that you like more about yourself now than you did when you were a cop?
I don't know if I'd say like them more. I'm definitely a different person by all means. When I was still a police officer before I got shot, I mean, I was probably like most police officers. I didn't talk much around people. I was very quiet because I was constantly, I mean, I couldn't shut the wheels off my head. I was constantly watching people's bodies, mannerisms, even when it wasn't in a police situation. I was just constantly reading body language. And I actually had a hard time shutting that off even when I was back home. I was actually hypersensitive to it after I got shot for a while. I mean, I couldn't stand in line at Kroger for more than a few minutes. So there's people behind me. I'm gauging who had a pistol, who was shopping, who was fake shopping. Why? I have no idea. But once I finally got past that, I was able to start slowly accepting a possible PTSD or whatever it is. But I forgot what we was even talking about. I lose track of things sometimes when I'm talking. I forget names, that kind of thing. I forgot what question I was just answering you.
With your transition to civilian life, I asked you if you do you like yourself more now than you did when you were a cop, and are there things that you don't like about yourself now?
I talk a lot more. I talk a lot, not more. I talk a lot. Period. Now, so sometimes that's a little embarrassing. I'll just go. I'll talk so much and then I forget what I talked about, and I'll just keep going and going. And I feel like I'm just like that one guy you walk in the room and go, oh, not that guy again. He talks too much. I feel like I became that guy. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it just changed my personality, or because I sat there on the couch for a year and a half talking to nobody. And I do think some of it is because the way my short-term memory is, and if I forget things, I feel like if I don't start talking to somebody about something, if I don't get it out real quick, I'll forget what I was going to say, or I'll forget what I was saying. So I just jam it all out really quick, fast as I can, which is a totally opposite of the person I was prior to this. People used to think I was kind of rude or even stuck up because I was so quiet. But I wasn't. I was just quiet, kind of shy person. I can be honest. I was kind of shy, but.
Are you a better husband and father now?
Oh, absolutely. More attentive by far. I feel like I have that wisdom of that 90-year-old grandpa sitting on a porch saying, looking back on your life, wish you could have done this, and you should have done this, should have done this. Well, I'm young enough. I'm only, 40. So I can still say, I don't have to say, I wish I could have. I can now say, I am gonna live my life like this and like this.
Well, that was fascinating, dude. I'm so glad that you decided to come on. I'm grateful. My Patreon's grateful for you. I'm going to set up another one. If you don't mind, we can do another one. And there's other things we can talk about. I love having these conversations. I don't know if you do, but we could talk about the differences between our departments. We can talk about how the DPD took care of you, where their shortfalls are. We could talk about the future of policing. We could talk about how to increase or make policing better. We could talk about outreach for officers and how we can help enhance their life to make them better. Officers that are like your that charity that you wanted to start with the horses and all that stuff. Like, we could do more videos of this if you're interested. I'd love to have you on again.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that. And actually tell your listeners, thank you, because one of the biggest struggles I think I've dealt with, and I'm it's not so much anymore, but I still do, is even as a police officer, I felt like you don't get thanks publicly from a lot of things, but you get that little bit here and there, that one person that says thank you because you help them out. And I feel like I felt that's a struggle I deal with, is falling from grace, kind of, to where I'm a nobody. And I feel like so to hear people like your listeners that said the few things that they did, that means a lot.
Yeah. It's you gave, some people give, a peanut for their community and they get that thank you. Then you give another peanut and you give that thank you. And you give that a week later, you give another peanut and they give you that thank you. You gave all the peanuts at once. You got shot. You gave up your career. You're in the hospital. You're in rehab for 2 years. You gave up everything all at once, there's not enough thank yous that people can give for those peanuts. And eventually they forget about you and they don't see you give that little peanut again. So they don't give you another thank you, not knowing that you dumped them all out. So it's weird because you gave all the peanuts, and I get how that could be such a change. We don't get much thanks. Nobody, our saying was everyone below 5 and over 50 likes police. That's it. You got to be over 50 or under 5 to like police. That's since changed. I think it's over 70. But everyone else hates you. And so to get that grandma that gives you the thumbs up when you arrest those guys and make her neighborhood a better place, or to get that 5-year-old come up and say, thank you, officer, and, you know, give you a card that he made or something, like those carry you a long way. But when you're not a policeman anymore because of what you gave, people don't walk up to you and do that. As rare as it was, you don't get the little boy saying thank you.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
That's a good point. And I bet you it's the same way with retirees. So
yeah, I think it is. I mean, that's part of it was dealt with retiring, giving it all up. It's not just because they got shot, but shot and retired. However, but yeah, it's all the same. It is.
Yeah, because you identify so much with what you do. Yeah. Your whole life, based on what you've given, is invested into that career, into that community.
And you don't realize, at least I did. I mean, I thought I separated the two so well. I did separate them, but when I had to start going to the, you know, to the shrink, those are the questions. That's when I realized that he'd ask me questions like, you know, well, what do you do for your free time? I'm like, I work. You know, well, do you have any friends outside the police department? No, they're all cops. You know, everything was just my life was that, and I never realized it.
And honestly, they're not even, believe it or not, they're not even friends. It's like you can't even. It's different. It's not a friendship. You would never even. I would never have hung out with the people that I worked with outside of work, but we hung out enough at work, and it was more intense and more intimate. So they're essentially like brothers. That's the same. It's the same thing I can put it. That's why they're like brothers, because you would never hang out with your brother because you lived with them. You just want to get out of the house and do your own thing. You had your own life. You had your own family, whatever.
That's a perfect. I never thought about it that way.
So you don't want to see them, but you were with them all day at work, and you loved being with them, and you loved being at work. It's just that as soon as that's time to punch out, it was like, love you, bro. See you tomorrow. And then you go do your own life. You don't want to hang out with them. So it's not that you didn't have friends that weren't cops. You didn't have friends. You had brothers who would die for you and that you would die for. And then you had everybody else. That's just what it was. James, you're a hero. A lot of people think you're a hero. It's a crazy time right now to be a policeman. People run their mouth. There's a lot of disrespect. It's real popular to hate on police right now. But from one cop to another, I want to say thank you for your service, for what you've done. I know that you've made the world a better place, and you caught that bad guy that murdered that cop. And I know that his wife or kids or family are grateful, and probably countless others with such a long career such as you've had. And it was an honor to meet you. It was an honor to hear your story. I'd never heard something so crazy in my life. And I've heard a lot of stories. And I think that your story is important for people to hear, because this will give perspective. This will put a human behind the badge for people to see what you go through, the emotional roller coaster of the job, the things that you think about, how it changes you when you're working for so long in that kind of a capacity, doing things that a lot of people don't have the balls to do, to put yourself to constantly run towards the gunfire when people are shooting instead of running away, to have a mission like you had, to sacrifice the things that you did, to make the mistakes that you made with being a father or being a husband, that we've all dealt with those. All the policemen have to juggle that, and it's such a hard thing to do. And so I think it's important for people to hear this who maybe are critical of the police and think that they hate the police just because of the badge that they carry. This will give them some type of perspective, but also for policemen to hear, and for people who love policemen to hear this kind of a story of what happened. We are all grateful that you made it. Thank God that this wasn't your end of watch and that you pulled through. I know that your life is not easier now. I know that it's a harder life. I know that you have damage from the shooting and that you'll probably continue to deal with it for the rest of your life. I am interested in how we can support. I know that we'll have a something that I can send to my subscribers and my viewers to reach out and help in any way that they can. Without getting into the politics, I understand that you weren't really taken care of that well from the department. You are collecting your retirement that you would have collected anyways. And they paid for the surgeries and all that kind of stuff. I think that it gets overlooked. And so I want to make sure that we can do whatever we can here at Leaving the Dream to support you. I'll leave that up to you and how you want to do that. And then I'll let my patrons and I'll let my viewers know in the video. I do have some more questions for you. But we will do that separately because this will be a Patreon-based question form. I have members of my Patreon who have asked questions that they want you to answer. I have 4 of them right now that I'll answer that'll only be available to my Patrons. So we'll do that after we log off from this video. But as far as this one, I just want to say thank you, sir. It has been an honor. You're a hero, and we need more people like you. You have been an inspiration to me. You've opened my eyes, and it was really just great on a human level to talk to somebody like you who I can relate to, and someone that I can look up to and see that there are really good cops out there. It's really great to see really good cops who have pulled through like you have and had such illustrious careers. It's just been an honor and an inspiration. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Dear mama, something's wrong. It's cold for a summer night. I feel there's something far beyond what is in my sight. I don't know if we're safe here. I don't think we should stay here. Dear mama, something's wrong. It's cold for a summer night. There must be something in the water that's making us all this away. So tell your mothers and your daughters they better stay away. 'Cause out here there's something strange. I send an SOS, but nobody hears the call. I'm starting to wonder if anyone's out there at all. Don't know if it's just me or if we're going crazy. It's getting harder to breathe. There must be something in the water that's making us all this away. No, no, no. So tell your mothers and your daughters they better stay away. 'Cause out here there's something strange.
I wasn't a gung-ho cop. I just had a really dope unit.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We loved each other. We cared about each other. We had each other's back, and we trained hard, and we trusted each other, and I would have gone into battle for any of them. So being a part of that, like, that was my life. And I got that from you when I was talking. I'm like, oh, this isn't some dude from Rochester Hills that does traffic all the time. This guy knows how I felt about the job. So when I left, I was giving up the best thing I'd ever been a part of, but it's for my babies. I knew they needed to be here for my mom and my wife's mom. They needed their grandparents. And I have a lot of uncles, and they're so different now. Like they're a part of a tribe. I don't regret it. I sleep at night, but I miss it. Every day is painful.
That's good.
Every day, the work that I do is painful to think back. I'm doing this now when I was doing that. It doesn't feel the same. This podcast is that for me. This is my ability to reconnect with those, to tell those stories, to live in that moment, and then eventually to reach out to people like you. You're not the only one I want to do this to. You are the first person I've ever had on my podcast that is not my family. And I want to do more with you because this is, you see how I'm activated right now, and I see how you are when we talk. This is because of our experiences, our shared experiences. People feel that. So when you are saying, like, you could tell that I'm good at it or whatever, really it's just that I have a passion for this, the connection that we have. This is what it does. And this is why my podcast is successful, because people can feel the passion. They know that this is real. And when people listen to cops like you, it changes their mind. They're used to seeing the public liaison who stands up in front of the press with that microphone, gives that stupid, I can't make any comments further. It's under further until the investigation's over. I can't. They see this stuff. They don't see what we do. They don't see how we communicate, the passion that we have. We don't want to hurt anybody, but we want to catch bad guys. And there are bad guys out there that want to hurt innocent people like our families, and we got to stop them. And someone's got to step up. And then when they see us communicating like this, they're like, yo, I can trust this dude. This dude knows what he's talking about. He's passionate about it. And I didn't know that that existed. That's why I think this is powerful, man.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty good.